Hi everyone, hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to talk about my largest position in the stock market, which is DraftKings. There was some big news that came out yesterday and I thought, you know what, I need to update you guys with this news. I did send it on the Discord, but I thought as well on the main channel, it's that big of a news story that it's definitely worth me covering it on the YouTube channel. Now, I know I said I was going to do the UK stocks I'm buying April 2024 edition. However, I'm still not feeling 100%, so I thought I'll leave it maybe until Sunday just to give me a couple extra days, and then maybe I can film longer than 10 minutes without snot starting to come down my face, which I'm sure you guys don't want to see. But also, this is quite a big news story with DraftKings, so I thought I'd update you guys so you kind of know that's going on. Obviously, I've stuck around DraftKings for a very long time. Obviously, up 35% year to date, which is absolutely amazing, crushing the S&P 500, and it's probably the reason why I'm beating the market at the moment. And in the last year as well, probably one of the big reasons why I beat the stock market last year is because this thing was up 152% in the last year. But it wasn't all pretty, was it? You know, I think some of you guys probably were around in the 2022 days where the stock was sitting around $10, $11, and everybody said it was an awful stock, and now all of a sudden it's analysts' favourite stock, everybody loves it, and everybody wants to buy DraftKings at $45. And some of those guys have been around there for a while now, you know, back in them 2022 days and looking at $11 going, this is crazy. So anyway, enough of that. On to DraftKings. So it had a pretty good day yesterday as the market opened up, but the market sold off towards the back end of the day, and DraftKings joined in that, which is a bit frustrating because it did have a good rally off the news that came out yesterday. So what happened is DraftKings and MGM have decided to look at expanding into Brazil. So this report came out from Bloomberg saying that they have applied to operate in Brazil. Now, this is quite big because Brazil is Latin America's largest economy, and it has just been, in the back end of 2023, announced that Brazil is more than likely, I think there's one more bit of paperwork that needs to go through, but it's going to be allowed in Brazil that we can do online sports betting and online sports iGaming. Now that's big because sports betting is a big market, but what is also big and what DraftKings has got really good at is iGaming. Now obviously what DraftKings operates in at the moment is US. A lot of their income comes from just sports betting only. The fact that they're going to have the sports betting and the iGaming, as you can see here, is very big. So this is basically both sides of the business coming online at the same time. Normally, you only get the sports betting in the US. So the fact that they're going to go for both of them is quite big. Now, what also does surprise me is that there's going to be, 130 companies have pre-registered their interest for a Brazilian license. That's a lot. So this is also the other thing, is that Brazil is potentially the new hot market. And with Brazil itself, why would Brazil be a new exciting market for DraftKings? And you know, people always ask me like, will DraftKings ever come to the UK? And I always say I don't think so. The reason why I don't think DraftKings will ever come to the UK is because the UK is a mature market. Right now, everybody has basically settled into, if you do online sports betting, you've basically settled into who you are using. For a new player to come into the space, you have to try and drag those people from those platforms onto your platform. The only way you do that is by big promos, and that's expensive and doesn't always work. So the UK is a mature market where clients are pretty much settled in now on who they're using. For example, for me, sometimes I might put a sports bet on something only a couple times a year, and I would use William Hill for that. Most people in the UK market have settled into what they're using. That's why on the US now, most people have settled into DraftKings and FanDuel. They pass it on to their friends as that's the one that they use, and that's how they've gained more market share. Now, with Brazil, you're going to have all these people are going to come online at once, and none of them have decided who they're going to use. Now, that could also lead to that this could be quite an expensive thing that DraftKings are going to take on in the next coming 24 months, whenever it is finalised. So it could be a big expense at the start, but what you have is, what they say, 200 million in Brazil, 200 million people that are looking for someone to use. So that's a big market to go for, and this is why if DraftKings, imagine if DraftKings take 30-40% market share like they've done in the US, that would be absolutely insane in Brazil. So there's all these people to kind of get onto the platform. Now, what I'm going to say is a bit of a negative is that obviously why DraftKings was so successful in the US is because they already had a client base. There was a fantasy sports before they did the sports betting. With Brazil, it's going to be a little harder because obviously DraftKings is behind. They don't have that data edge to get people on the platform. So that's one issue, is that they're a little bit behind on this one. Another thing I would say is that there's going to be so many more competitors. People are going to look at DraftKings and the success that they've had and FanDuel that they've had in the US and go, wow, this is a brand new market. We're at the same starting position of what DraftKings is. That's going to help us. And the other thing I'll say is that also DraftKings was previously focused on the NFL. Brazil's major sport is football. So it's also going to be a shift for DraftKings where they're going to have to adapt to their main sport being something different than the NFL, which could be a little bit of a challenge as well. So it's exciting, but at the same time, it's definitely going to be interesting because DraftKings is going to start level pegging with everyone this time. So it's going to be a real test of can DraftKings deliver the best outcomes, the best platform to be successful? That's going to be the really big. I'm really excited to see what DraftKings can do here, because if they could take good market share here, then it's imagine if there's a couple of other countries that start relaxing their online sports betting rules, how they're going to do expanding into international markets across maybe other places like Latin America. It could be really exciting, but at the same time, it's also a bit nerve-wracking because it's not as... Whenever a state comes online on the US, you're like, they're going to take a big market share. It's already a household name. Everyone that probably lives in a state like California that doesn't have online sports betting, when they go see the baits in another state like Michigan, they're probably allowed to go do the sports betting. They're probably already using it and know of it, and the mates are using it. So it's quite easy for them to carry on, and they're already national advertising there. It's quite easy for them to take the market share. With Brazil, it's level playing field. So it's going to be interesting to see what goes on here. Now, the other thing that I think DraftKings have to be cautious of is that obviously it's Brazil. Brazil isn't going to have the high spending amounts like the US, so they've got to be careful. The average spend per user is going to be nowhere near the US users. So they've got to be careful from that point of view, that they've got to realise that the income they're going to bring in from every user is going to be a lot less. So that's going to deflate the average revenue per user quite a bit. So that's something that I hope DraftKings management are taking into consideration. This isn't as priority as a new state coming online. However, it could be a nice background drive. If they take 5-10% of the market share, it probably will be very interesting how they do. But to put it into context is that on the channel we've always talked about that, the big things that we want to see happen is the likes of California come online. California, we've talked about, is the next big growth driver for DraftKings to grow 60+% revenue growth. Texas is another big one for 60+% revenue growth. Those are going to be two key drivers that we need to see come online. If they don't come online, DraftKings isn't going to carry on growing at 30-40% a year. They're going to probably drop down to the 20% a year. So if they want to have the big growth driver, they need one of these states to come online. However, what changes it is there's not as much pressure now on Cali and Texas to come online, because when you look at Brazil, to be fair, Brazil alone has 250 million people. So to put that into context, you're talking about nearly 7 Cali states there coming online. It's big. It's a big market. Now, like I said, even though the average revenue per user probably won't be as much, that's a lot of people. And if you take 10% of that market, you're talking to the point where you got half of Cali basically using your platform. Or if you're able to take 20% of the market, same again. So it's, and obviously that's assuming that it's everyone. Obviously it's not going to be everyone, but it's a big market opening up here. And like I said, it's going to be that everybody, it could be very competitive at the start, but when everyone's not really got a platform, it's really up for DraftKings to kind of show, yeah, we are the best in class. We are the proven business model in the US. We copy and paste it, we drop it in Brazil, and we see the success again. So I can see why DraftKings are really keen to look into this market, and it's exciting. It's a bit nervous at the same time because when a new state comes online, you just automatically assume, oh yeah, that's DraftKings taking another 30% stake, 40% market share in whatever state that's launched. Whereas Brazil, you started at a level playing field with everyone as well. And how is that going to translate to Brazil? Are the people in Brazil going to take it on board and use that platform? So yeah, it's interesting. We'll see what happens. This is something that I was not forecasting at all in my financials in the next kind of 3 or 4 years. So the fact that this has come online could be a bit of an issue, that we see that maybe DraftKings brand isn't as strong as what it is. Or maybe it's one of those that, hold on, the fact that we've just had potentially another 200 million people come onto DraftKings radar and they take 10-20% market share, it's like, wow, this company's going to be huge. Like, I always talked about one day seeing DraftKings come 100 billion market cap company, and it's 21 billion now. We start adding places like Brazil on. We're not talking about 100 billion market cap company anymore. We're talking 200, 300 billion here. So it's interesting. I'll definitely be watching this, and I'll be watching in the Q1 earnings, because I'm sure that it'll be brought up by a couple of analysts about their thoughts on Brazil anyway. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, guys. See you in a bit.